Good morning, my dear friends. My name is Sanveer Kashyap, and today I am going to read the second chapter of The Hound of the Baskervilles book of the Hound of the Baskervilles book from the eighth class. Okay. Okay. The second chapter's name is The Curse of the Baskervilles. Dr. Mortimer drew from his breast pocket a manuscript dated 1742. He explained that this was a statement of a certain legend of the Baskerville family and had been entrusted to his care by Sir Charles Baskerville, whose sudden and tragic death 3 months before had created so much excitement in Devonshire. Dr. Mortimer was his personal friend as well as his medical attendant. Though Sir Charles Baskerville was a strong-minded and practical man, he took the manuscript very seriously. Therefore, his mind was prepared for such an end, and as did eventually overtake him. Dr. Mortimer now wished to consult Holmes on a practical and urgent matter which had been decided within 24 hours. However, since the manuscript was short and very close connected with the affair, he sought Holmes' permission to read it to him. Holmes leaned back in his chair and listened attentively to Dr. Mortimer, who read the following curious old world narrative. There had been many statements about the origin of the hound of the Baskervilles. Yet, as I come in a direct line from Hugo Baskerville, as I had the story from my father, who also had it his, I've recorded, believing that it happened as it is described here. Know that this manner of Baskerville belonged to Hugo of that name. He was wild and a godless man, cruel by nature. Hugo fell in love with the daughter of a farmer who held lands near the Baskerville estate. But the young girl, being of good character and fearing his evil name, avoided him. One day, when the girl's father and brothers were away from home, Hugo, with the 5 or 6 of his wicked friends, secretly went to the farm and carried her off. When they had brought her to the hall, they left her in a room upstairs. Hugo and his friends then sat down to drink as was their nightly custom. The poor girl left alone in her room was frightened by the singing and shouting of and terrible swearing that came up from below. She was so scared that with the help of the thick creepers which covered the wall under the window, she came down and fled to a father's farm across the moor. A little later, Hugo left his guests to carry food and drink to his captive, and found that the girl had escaped. Then he became one seized then he became as one seized by a devil. Mm, For rushing into the dining hall, he sprang upon the great table and swore before all the guests that he would that same night give his body and soul to the powers of evil if he could overtake the young girl. And while his drunken friends stood shocked at his anger, one of them carried out that they should have set the hounds on her. Hugo at once ordered his servants to saddle his mare and release the pack of hounds. And giving the hounds a kerchief of the maids, he set off in a hot chase in the moonlight over the moor. Everything was in confusion for some time. Soon his friends awoke to what was likely to happen on the moor. Immediately they mounted their horses and started in hot pursuit. Following the course which the maid must have taken if she were to reach her own home. They had gone a mile or two when they passed a shepherd and asked him if he had seen the hunt. The man was so afraid that he could hardly speak, but at last he said he had indeed seen the hunt. Okay. Seen the unhappy maiden with the hounds upon her track. But this was not at all. The man had seen Hugo Baskerville on his black mare, and behind him ran a hound of hell, which was so terrifying that the shepherd earnestly prayed that he would never be its victim. The drunken men rode onwards, but soon their skins turned cold, for the black mare, dabbled with white froth, went past while with trailing braid and empty saddle. Overcome with great fear, they rode close together, and at last they came upon the hounds. These, though known for their valor and breed, huddled together, whimpering in fear at the deep dip upon the moor. Some were slinking away, and some were gazing down the narrow valley before them. The company came to a halt. Three of them rode forward down the dip, which opened into a broad space. In the center of it, this lay the maid dead of fear and fatigue. The body of Hugo Baskerville lay near her, but it was a third detail of scene that raised the hair upon the heads of the three brave men. Standing over Hugo and plucking at his throat, there stood a great black beast, shaped like a hound, yet larger than any hound that anyone had ever seen. And even they, as they looked, the black beast tore the throat out of Hugo Baskerville, and as it turned its blazing eyes and dripping jaws upon the three onlookers, they shrieked with fear and rode for dear lives, still screaming across the moor. It was reported that one of them died that very night. Such is the tale, my sons, of the coming of the hound, which is said to have haunted the family ever since. Many of the family have met with sudden, bloody, and mysterious deaths. I console you not to cross the moor in those dark hours when powers of evil are exhalated. Dr. Mortimer finished reading his usual narrative and stared across Mr. Sherlock Holmes. The latter yawned and remarked that the story would be interesting to a collector of fairy tales. That is a savage. Okay, so well, let me just plug this here so that I can comfortably read in the story to you. It's like this, okay? Yeah, it is. Yes. Now let me read the story. Dr. Mortimer then took a folded newspaper out of his pocket. Now, Mr. Holmes, he said, here is something a little more recent. This is the Devon Country Chronicle of 14 June, 14 June, 14th June of this year. It is a short account of the facts that came to light as the death of Sir Charles Baskerville, which occurred a few days before that date. Okay. Holmes' expression became serious, and he was ready to listen. Our visitor readjusted his glasses and began. The recent sudden death of Sir Charles Baskerville has casted a gloom over the country. Though Sir Charles had resided in Baskerville Hall for only a short period of his friendly nature and extreme generosity, he had won the affection and respect of all who came into contact with him. Sir Charles, as is well known as made large sums of money in South African speculation. Everyone knows how large his plans were for the reconstruction and improvement. Not having children of his own, he wished that the whole countryside should, within his own lifetime, profit by his good fortune. His generous donations to local charities have been frequently acknowledged in the columns of this newspaper. The circumstances connected with the death of Sir Charles have not been entirely cleared up by the inquest, but at least enough has been done to get rid of various new rumors fed by local superstition. There is reason to believe that death was due to the natural causes. Sir Charles, a widower, was a simple man, and his indoor servants, as Baskerville Hall, consisted of a married couple named Barrymore, the husband acting as a butler and the wife as a housekeeper. The evidence corroborated that many of them of friends that that of many friends shows that Sir Charles had not been well for some time. He had a heart problem and used to suffer breathlessness and severe attacks of nervous depression. Dr. Mortimer said the friend and doctor of the deceased he has given evidence to the same effect. And the facts of the case are simple. Sir Charles Baskerville had the habit of walking down the famous yew alley of Baskerville Hall every night before going to bed. On the 4th of June, Sir Charles had declared his intention of going to London the next day and had ordered Barrymore to get his luggage ready. That night he went out as usual for his walk, in the course of which he was in the habit of smoking a cigar. He never returned. At 12 o'clock, Barrymore, finding the hall door still open, became alarmed and went to look for his master. It had been a wet day, and he could trace Sir Charles' footprints easily down the alley. It seemed as if Sir Charles stood for some time near the gate, which was halfway down the alley. He then proceeded down the alley, and it was at the far end of it that his body was discovered. So that was all for today's video. Bye and have a nice day. And this was just part 1 of chapter 2. I will make another part well, of chapter 2, because the chapter 2 is not finished. Okay. So, so please like this video, subscribe and share it if you liked it.